We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday when you listen to this. We're recording it Monday night, and we have a sight for sore eyes, at least for me. Eric is joining us today. Last couple of things I've done on my own. Getting a little old. I'm quite a bit lazy. So those things are tough. So it's nice to have somebody who knows a lot of shit and can explain a lot of shit, and I can sit here and go, "Yeah, that's a good point," and then take a day off or so. So Eric is with us. Welcome, Eric. As I say, your sight for sore eyes because we got so much shit to talk about, and nobody can explain it better than you can.
Well, thanks for having me. I love being on the podcast. I'm glad I could explain it. I've had some people reach out, like in the comments of my videos on both TikTok and YouTube, saying, "Hey, love to see you on the podcast. Even if TikTok goes away, I can still catch you there, that kind of thing." So I know people get something out of my being here. So, and that was the whole point of me
Absolutely.
coming on.
Absolutely.
So,
That's the funny thing. That's the most gratifying thing about doing this podcast. I was talking to whoever I was talking to the other day, and when I decided that I would have listeners on the podcast, some people thought it was a crazy idea, and I thought, well, what are my options? And I know it. I can kind of tell who people are by the comments and stuff, so I bring them on, and it's interesting how many people from just being on the podcast have gotten a little bit of a following too. And then they go off and do TikTok and YouTube and they get a following. I feel fortunate that I've been able to find people that are as high a quality as you and some of the others that people want to follow. Uh, it's justified. You guys, great. All of you give out interesting and different information. So it gives me some variety in the show. It's not just me as a talking head talking all day. I get some other bright folks that give us a different perspective. So I feel lucky to have been able to do that, and we're going to continue to do it. Because Eric, you give the details of what's going on. I'm a more big picture guy. So when I look at what's going on now, we talked about all the things that was happening, and all I have to say is, what the fuck? I mean, it's
yeah,
fucking
exactly.
crazy. It
It's
was
every
crazy
day.
before. Every day.
Yeah, every day there's more bullshit. And it doesn't matter what's going on. I mean, you got a president who is facing mental decline rapidly
Yeah.
every day with the bullshit he spews. I think you and I both did TikToks talking about it. He was talking about the drug problem and why it was such a good thing that he sunk that boat off Venezuela. He claimed 300 million people died of drugs last year. There's 340 million people in the United States.
Yeah.
The math doesn't math. It doesn't work, you know. But he just spews it. And I don't know if he was just trying to sound impressive and bulk up the number to get people to cheer for what he was doing, or if he really doesn't understand what the numbers are, or who knows what. But it just adds when you add it with everything else that he has had happen recently, where he says he's going to Russia, but he was going to Alaska. He talks about the late great Hannibal Lecter. He goes on a tangent about sharks and batteries and things during the campaign, the bruising, the face drooping at a baseball game. Everything makes you wonder about his mental health, about his physical health, and how long is he going to last?
You know what my favorite story from today is? It's not the most important story. It's not the scariest story, but my favorite story, and maybe you can expand on it because I heard it toward the end of the night. He's putting together troops to go into Memphis, Tennessee, because they need the help, apparently, in his mind. And they even have some tanks there. And I don't know if you heard this. They have tanks there, and those motherfuckers from Memphis stole the goddamn takes. That is the
I
most hilarious story and epitomizes the incompetence of those motherfuckers.
I saw a TikTok on that. Now I haven't looked at the story deep enough because it was right before we got on here to see if it was legit. I was going to do that after the podcast, and if it was legit, I was going to make a TikTok for it for tomorrow, just because that is hilarious. If it's true and they jumped in, we've been saying they should go into the red states and send the National Guard. What would happen? Well, We're seeing it. The people in the red states aren't having it. You know,
No,
he
they're going to
backed off
fight
of
back.
yeah, he backed off of Chicago because he was afraid they were going to fight back. And he goes into Memphis and they're fighting back, and he loses again. Donald Trump is weak. He loses constantly, and he's backed into a corner. So what's he going to do?
Yeah, I'm just looking here at the story about tanks stolen, and here's one thing that may be a flag for us. Everything that the AI says reports indicate that tanks belonging to the National Guard were stolen in Memphis, Tennessee. The incident was initially publicized through an Instagram reel posted on September 14th, which has since been widely shared. Further details on the incident, including the official confirmation from the National Guard, the type of tank stolen, and any subsequent recovery efforts have happened. So, this is one way to think that it might not be real. People always ask me, how do you investigate this? As I look at the top 10 um, acknowledgments of tanks stolen in Memphis, I see Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, Instagram threads. That tells me it's likely not a true story because it's a big enough story that would show up on a news source, um, and it's not showing up on a news source. I see where propane tanks stolen from Dollar General, but nothing about tanks in Memphis. So we'll have to sit on that. I just like the premise of the story, whether it's real or not. But while we're talking about crazy and goofy shit, it's been a while since we've talked on the show, certainly before the murder of Charlie Kirk. Who had that on their fucking bingo card? And who had the way they react to this whole thing on the bingo card? That's been fucking bizarre.
Well, no, actually, I think I wasn't surprised entirely by their reaction, to be honest. Them
Really?
calling for civil war, going against the libs, blaming the immigrants, blaming the trans people, all of that. I fully expected that because that's what they do.
Right.
Uh, and then when they find out it's one of their own, well, we need to forgive him. It's all a mental health crisis. Again, that's what they do. I fully expected that after I heard Charlie Kirk passed. The rest of it, the other bizarre, I did TikTok on this, calling it out, is the stuff I didn't expect. I didn't expect the vice president to send Air Two to go fly his body back to D.C. to lie in state. Donald Trump to issue him the Medal of Freedom, uh, the flags to be ordered to half staff. They're talking about putting a statue to Charlie Kirk up in the Capitol. Some Republican members of Congress are wanting to do that.
Wow.
Here, I in my TikTok, I talked about this one. Representative Marianne Miller Meeks, I think is it her name?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I
so.
might have gotten her first name wrong, but I know it's Miller Meeks anyway. She represents Iowa's first congressional district. There's supposed to be some new building for intellectual freedom, some like Center for Intellectual Freedom to be built on the University of Iowa campus. She wants it to be named after Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, to my knowledge, has no connection to the University of Iowa, has no connection to the state of Iowa that I'm aware of. Why? It makes no sense. But because this building was supposed to be named and it hasn't even been built yet, oh, let's name it after Charlie. What happened? Where was this energy when the two state reps were attacked? State, one of them killed. There was crickets
Absolutely.
from them.
I caught a short bit on MSNBC, and Ari was talking to Peter Navarro. And it pissed me off
Oh
when I
God.
saw Peter Navarro on there. He's a fucking criminal. He's an idiot. He's a acknowledged liar. He wrote a book based on a lie, and he's a piece of shit. So I'm watching this, and Ari was kind of ripping into him pretty good, putting him in the corner and being rough on him. And he suggested that Kirk said something disparaging about the intellect of black women. And Peter Navarro said, he never said that. That's ridiculous. You should fact check me on that. So I spent about 10 seconds on Google. Did Charlie Kirk ever disparage the intellect of black women? I got at least four YouTube clips on different topics and different people. Absolutely said it. You know, that's the one thing about Republicans, what they hate. They hate when you play back Charlie Kirk quotes because they'll tell you, well, it's out of context. They almost hate that as much as when you quote the Bible to them. They don't like them their point of view being questioned by using the Bible, or in this case, Charlie Kirk. This guy was an absolute piece of shit. And I don't care what anybody says. And it's just absolutely amazing to me, all the Republicans that jumped on this bandwagon and will live and die on that fucking hill. That's crazy because all of it's provable.
Oh yeah, I had a coworker just today tell uh we were talking about it, and she goes, "Well, yeah, I watched some of his stuff. He was pretty good about how he could get people to stutter and stammer and and get them all flustered." And I go, "Yeah, a piece of shit." And I go, "You know what he said about guns?" She goes, "What?" I go, "He said it's okay if you have a few gun deaths every year as long as we have our Second Amendment right to protect our other rights." She goes, "What?" I go, "Yeah." And I told her about how he believes women should be like 1950s, subservient to your husband and not have the vote and all this. She goes, "Oh, never mind. I didn't know any." She goes, "Maybe I pay a little more attention to news and politics."
Well, exactly. And it's so much like Donald Trump, Um, people are so stupid they will believe anything anybody says. Charlie Kirk says, I'm a Christian. Well, if you're a Christian, you would take a look at the fruits he bears. And if you look at the fruits he bears, you know he's not a Christian. It's just the same with Donald Trump. Oh, I'm the smartest guy, toughest guy in the world. Everybody loves me around the world. Prices are going down. GDP is going up. Inflation is going down. I'm going to do it. Nobody asked him how he's going to do it. And now that he's there and can't do it, they don't question him. People will believe anything. I mean, shit. I could go out and run for office and tell everybody I'm going to put a chicken in every pot and a Lamborghini in every garage, and dumb fucks would buy it.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of Donald Trump and being smart, did you see his quote from Sunday night where he
I
comes
don't
out
think
and
so.
says, "Smart people don't like me." That was basically the extent. They don't like me. They don't agree with what I have to say. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. And he's calling his supporters dumb to their face, and they're not going to get it. And the audience around him was clapping.
I can see Stephen Miller come up to him later and say, Donnie, when you said smart people don't like you, that's not exactly a flex because you've insulted the people that do like you and you've pointed out the obvious that anybody with intelligence would know you're a fucking idiot. It doesn't surprise me. What a stupid statement. My God.
The thing is, though, even if still if Stephen Miller told him that, Donald Trump would say, "Nah, that does you're wrong. You're wrong about how you acknowledge it. I made a great you know, they knew, man. I'm a genius. I'm a genius."
Well, he certainly thinks he is. And now with this continually diminishing cognitive ability, I think he's become even more delusional. He's not even smart enough to say something to distract or divert people anymore. He's just saying the stupid shit out loud and he looks around like, I'm a fucking genius. Did you just hear what I say? I mean, it's got to be hard for the Republicans now to support and back up the things he says because if they're even understandable, they're absolutely ridiculous. You got to wonder when people are going to say, Jesus Christ, that's too far. I can't. I just can't with that. But they're still sticking with them.
Well, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I think what they're doing is they're trying to stick with him as long as they can. They're hoping to ride it out till the midterms because they think that they can use his popularity to increase their lead in both through the midterms, and that's what they're hoping for. But if they get the inkling that they're going to lose in the midterms and lose bad, that they might ditch him for, but it'll be uh, enough. I think it's going to be too late whenever they decide to ditch Donald Trump at this point.
Well, I'll agree with what you're saying there, and I don't want you to think I'm calling you out here. I'm calling out the Trumplafucks. I would say to that, so you're telling me that the farmers are all going broke, prices are going high, inflation is going high, deportations is putting a bad light on this country. He's bombing two fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela. He's allowing Vladimir Putin to send drones into Poland and now Romania, triggering NATO to Article 4 and maybe an Article 5. You're trying to tell me you believe all this shit going on is what's going to help you win the 2026 midterms. I'm here to tell you, buddies, the fucking house is burned down. Time to get out of that motherfucker.
Yeah, but they still think that that he's got enough of a pull and enough popularity with that 30% MAGA base that won't show up. If the party splits from Donald Trump, they won't show up to vote for anybody Republican. There's a chance that as long as Donald Trump is in their good graces and they haven't gone after, if the economy and everything is fucking them in the ass, that they can spin it because they're, you know, still loyal to Donald Trump. This is because Donald Trump has been the most charismatic Republican candidate since Reagan. Not the best candidate, but he's been the most charismatic. If Jeb Bush had Donald Trump's personality, he would have won in 2016 and
Yeah,
been way
yeah.
better.
But see, that's my point. They're so desperate to hold on to that 30% for Donald Trump. And they got lucky because Republicans will just vote for Republicans. So the remaining percentage that maybe didn't see it his way voted for him just by virtue of him having an R next to his name. But the shit he's done and he's continuing to do has really kind of pushed away the independents and some of the more reasonably minded um, Republicans. And that's a stretch. I understand that. But you see what I'm saying is they're doing everything to save that 30%, but they're fucking themselves out of the remaining 70%. How is that a fucking winner? It's not.
It's not. But see, he brought a big chunk of that 30% MAGA base that he brought out of the woodwork where people were voting before.
Right.
They were conservative leaning people that Donald Trump, that if they would have voted or insisted voted, they would have voted Republican. But they hadn't been. So the Republicans go ahead and they pick up some voters because of Donald Trump. And they're like, look at us, we're back, we're popular. And I think they can see the writing on the wall that when Donald Trump is gone, the Republican Party is struggling to stay relevant. They may disappear.
Well, I guess I kind of understand what you're saying. Um, I think they believe, regardless of how bad the situation is, the typical Republican vote, they're going to get it. That's a gimme. And the 30% are people who waded into this when Donald Trump came into play. And they probably never voted much before. So they look at that as icing on the cake. But I think they may be surprised by how many Republicans, or at least independents, because they need the independents to win anything, that will stick with the Republicans, MAGA, and Donald Trump at this point. I mean, it's gotten so bad. Farmers are going out of business. Farmers who knew better, they still walked into this, but they're going under very quickly. And there's a lot of bad shit going on. I just don't know how he expects normal people to stick with him after this. I mean, um, George H.W. Bush, when he started out as president of the United States, he had probably one of the highest approval ratings because of the Iraq Iran thing that was going on. But toward the end, he said that famous line, no more new taxes. And then the economy went to shit and he lost and only served one term. That's one little thing. Donald Trump's got about 20 of those. How in the
Yeah.
world do they think they can win?
they're hoping that Donald Trump's personality alone is going to pull him out of the fire, and they're hoping that they can find a way to somehow spin all of this on the evil Democrats. They have built their platform. They've gotten away from a platform, and basically their whole thing is blame everything bad on the Democrats. We get credit for everything good. And you talked about George H.W. Bush. There's something else that I don't know if I picked this up to an Ed or if I picked this up from a different creator, but Clinton wasn't on anybody's radar to be the Democratic nominee against
No,
H.W. Bush. They figured they were just going to run a candidate. H.W. Bush was going to cruise to a second term. Democrats were convinced they didn't have a chance to win in 92. I
right.
think that was kind of the general consensus that H.W. Bush was going to win. And then the economy took a shit. All of a sudden, we get Clinton. He lucked into it because the economy went bad. And I believe it was H.W. Bush. It's the economy, stupid. I believe that was his line, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point, and it's something to acknowledge here with Clinton. Clinton wasn't a top contender to run for president when he did. The economy was so bad and people were so down about Democrats, no legitimate candidate wanted to run for the presidency because they figured it was a loss. And once you've lost a bid to the presidency, you're kind of out of the mix after that. You've kind of blown your wad. So Bill Clinton just saunters in and does what he does. And the question is, how did he win? And I will say this, I will say that Bill Clinton won for similar reasons to why Trump won and why the next Democratic candidate should emulate those two. I think it had more to do with the person, the brand they created, who he was. He was kind of a cool younger guy. People were liking that. And like with Donald Trump, it was they were tired of the establishment politics, so they voted for him. People are looking for an individual that they can follow and trust and believe in. The parties don't matter as much as the individual. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. But I also think the party to an extent will matter if it's a Republican. If they can't figure out how to rebrand away from Donald Trump, this MAGA line of thinking, the fascist line of thinking, um, that they're in trouble. That
Yeah,
brand is going to be, horrible for them, no matter what personal brand that their candidate may have. They could run the best candidate out of their party, which, could be Brian Kemp, maybe Chris Christie. Um, Trying to think of a few others that would be decent and have a good shot, but because there's not many because they've kicked all the good ones out of their party.
right.
Um, but even if they run and they build up that brand of their own, being connected to what Donald Trump has turned their party into might be enough to sink them on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if Donald Trump is out of the way, and I presume he will be, he isn't looking good. Uh, if the Republicans want a redemption tour, to me, Brian Kemp is the only logical choice. He's a governor of a state, relatively big state. Um, he does have his Trump humping tendencies, but he has the strength to push back against Donald Trump too. This would be a way to get somebody relatively normal as a candidate for the Republican Party. There aren't too many more options. I mean, you think of the House of Representatives and even the Senate. Some of these fuckers are going to be pretty tainted when all this stuff comes out on Donald Trump and he becomes a pariah, because that day is coming. Brian Kemp has the luxury of being the guy that's kind of been independent and did push back against Donald Trump. There's not too many people that have done that. So to me, if they want a redemption, he would be the guy to put up there as the presidential candidate. That said, if they just want to continue the cult, they'll get some other crazy motherfucker to lead the charge.
Yeah, they're probably going to try to continue the cult. They'll probably either run JD Vance, maybe run Eric or Don Jr., somebody like that. Now they're saying, well, Charlie Kirk was only 31. If he would have lived, he would have been a great contender. He would have been a great one to run for president. And I don't think he would have made it, just because of some of the stuff that he had talked about. Saying that some gun deaths were okay if it protected the Second Amendment, and saying things about the minorities and all these kind of things. He wouldn't have been able to win. I think Brian Kemp is their best chance, and I don't even know if he wants to run in 28, because they could be looking at it like this is going to be a reverse of a Bill Clinton situation,
Yeah.
where their side is so vastly unpopular that they don't think they're going to have a chance to keep the presidency, that they're just going to give out a sacrificial lamb, let somebody run, maybe a Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, maybe Greg Abbott out of Texas. I don't know. I could see him trying that. Maybe reusing Abbott, trying to get some sympathy with him. Who knows? But
Well,
the other problem is,
JD Vance seems like a likely sacrificial lamb because nobody gives a fuck about him. Nobody likes him. Just feed his ego, let him run for the presidency, get destroyed, and then be done with him. That's the problem JD Vance has right now. Democrats don't like him, obviously. Republicans don't even seem to like him. He's a talentless, no personality, corrupt motherfucker. That's what he is.
the only reason I would hope he would run, other than the fact that he would be easy to beat,
Yeah.
is he's easy to make fun of.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the content would be never ending if he ran while I'm covering the 2028 election there. That would be the one reason I'd want him to run. He has no chance of winning. Um, and if they run Eric or Don Jr., this
Oh,
country's going to be
Jesus.
so sick of Donald Trump by that point. It's not even funny. I saw a clip from somebody on the right. They suggested that after Donald Trump's done, run either Eric or Don Jr. for 2 terms, run the other one for 2 terms, and then that'd be time for Barron, I think is what they said, or just about time for Barron. And it's like,
Oh, talk about delusions of grandeur. I tell you what,
yeah,
I will tell you
I
what,
don't.
when this gets done and everything gets exposed about Donald Trump, because when he's down and out, there's going to be a lot of things coming to the surface. I think the only things that's going to happen is his grandchildren are going to rush to change their last name, a la the Hitler ancestors.
Exactly. I would be surprised if they keep that same last name, and they, uh, you know, don't try to get away from the legacy of their grandfather. And in some cases, even their father. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Ivanka and Tiffany and try to get away from being a Trump. There was a time when people thought he wasn't a fully respected businessman. He wasn't almost universally hated like he is now.
No, well, Jared Kushner had the other issue where his dad was in fucking prison because he was a criminal, and he trained his son, who clearly is a criminal, and maybe looking at some charges down the road when Donald Trump is on the way. Can you imagine um, a poor kid, people going, "Go, God damn it, your grandpa's Donald Trump. What the fuck?" And all the kid can say, "Yeah, but my dad's Don Jr." Doesn't fucking help.
No, no, it's going to be so horrible. Um, I mean, and they didn't do anything to deserve the legacy they're going to be left with.
No,
But Jesus Christ, Donald Trump, by the time he's said and done, his name is going to be mud. Like we've talked about it before. It's going to be like finding your grandpa's, uh, KKK stuff in the closet. You're going to find
pretty
it buried in
much.
a box, it hidden, 20 years from now. And, when people my age are finally getting retired and downsizing and stuff that were hardcore Trump humpers, you're going to go, holy shit, I never knew that about grandpa, or I never knew that about dad, or I didn't remember that he was so deep into the MAGA stuff. And they're going to be appalled. And
They're going to be
I think
appalled.
that's what's going to happen.
Well, and the thing about it is the pariah state that he'll be in won't be just in this country. It'll be worldwide. Everybody will, because what he's doing is affecting a lot of other countries too. It's really upsetting a lot of economies. And, just on a happy note, just a wishful thought. I'm curious, based on how he looks, how he sounds, the drooping face, and all this stuff, how much time do you think he's got fucking left, for fuck's sake? It's almost like he's a cockroach and he can't kill him.
You know, I hate to guess, but I'm going to say on the far side of it, he might make it to the midterms.
Really?
Like on like the alt like I would be surprised if he gets past the midterms with as bad as he seems to be right now. Now, that being said, he just surprised us before. Maybe he makes it the entire run, but I don't think so. I think the midterms is probably going to be the end of it for him. We got the drooping face issue, we got the blood clots, or at least what they think are blood clots stuff going on, especially with his swollen feet. You got the bruised up hands. Some medical professionals are saying that he's probably getting IVs on the regular, which explains the bruising. I
Yeah.
know my mom is that's like the only place they can get IVs for her because her veins were so bad. They can't they can't get her in the arm at all. They have to use her hands, and she's only in her early 70s, and she bruises up real bad every
Yeah.
single time. It
Yeah.
it seems likely. If he makes it to the midterm, I'd be surprised. But then again, like you said, he's like a cockroach. You just can't get rid of him.
Well, let me ask you this though. Say he survives, say he goes full cockroach and he does survive physically. He's already diminished mentally and physically, but say he survives. What is the possibility? Because it's getting worse and worse every day that he fucks up something so badly that even the Republicans say, fuck enough. I mean, he's got Russia going into Romania and Poland and fucking with NATO. There's got to be some nervous fucking Republicans at this point.
There are, and I think I've said it before. Unless he really fucks something up between here and there, which is always likely, there could come a point when they say enough's enough before the midterms. Because I've said it before. I think since he got elected, they've been having closed door meetings trying to weigh out. And of course, Donald Trump doesn't even know these meetings are going on,
No, of
but
course
trying to
not.
weigh out where the line is. Is he helping us right now? Do we think we can still win with him at the top of the party, or do we need to cut him? And they haven't decided they have to cut him out of the party yet. Um, and I
Doesn't
think
that
if
seem crazy to you? I mean, if you
oh,
and I were sitting there and Donald Trump was our leader, I would have done that 2 years ago or earlier.
I would have done it 6 years ago minimum. I
Yeah.
mean, to be fair, I never would have suggested Donald Trump been a decent, leader of our party to begin with. But uh, yeah, I think they're going to look at it, and I think the midterms, if he is still around, is the dividing line. I said it before. I think there is a chance that if he costs them the midterms bad enough, where they lose the Senate in what should be a favorable map for them to keep the Senate, if they
Yeah.
lose the Senate and they lose 30, 40, 50 seats in the House, even despite their gerrymandering efforts, that in that window between election day and the new Congress being sworn in, that the Republicans go, fuck this, we got to reset. Let's get rid of that dumb fuck. Let's bring in the other dumb fuck, because at least we can say we tried to do something and maybe shore him up enough that people might give him a chance in 28.
Yeah. I got to be honest with you. Every night when I go to bed and say my prayers, I'm hoping Donald Trump takes the dirt nap by the end of the year. I mean, I think that's feasible. When a guy his age looks the way he is, it could happen at any moment. What do you think happens? Say he he wakes up dead some morning because
I
because
love that expression, but yeah,
he can't do anything, and he just falls apart. What do what happens when that happens with the Republicans? Do they try to hide it? Do they cover it up for a while? Do they scramble and put J.D. Vance in office as quickly as possible? You can't trust the Republicans, and they're always playing games. So I'm just not sure what they would do unless Donald Trump keels over in front of us on television. If it's behind closed doors, there's going to be a lot of shit we don't know.
I think it would. I think at most they would probably keep it from us for just a couple of days. At
Okay.
most, I don't think they could keep it from us for much more than that. Look what happened early in the month when he took 4 or 5 days where he didn't talk to the press, and we were seeing images of him, but and he was going out and going golfing, and people were saying, well, that doesn't really look like him. It's a body double. It's this. It's that. Anything more than a couple days, and because of who Donald Trump is and how he is with the press and how he has set himself up to always be in that limelight, they can't keep it hidden for long. So no, they're going to come out. It might not be immediate, but I think it would be within a day or two that they would come out, say, okay, Donald Trump passed, JD Vance, they would televise it, they would do everything they would have to do of JD Vance taking the oath. They would put JD Vance in because that's what they have to do. And then they would start trying to uh, rebuild their brand away from Donald Trump into JD Vance and letting him try to set his legacy for 28. Problem is, what does he do? Does he come in, reverse all the tariffs? If he does it quickly, that's going to piss everybody off. If he doesn't
Right.
do it quickly, it's going to fuck the economy and piss everybody off. JD Vance, when he comes in, he's in an unwinnable situation here. If he
Yeah,
fixes everything
definitely.
the way it needs to be fixed, he's going to lose his voting base. And unless he doesn't want to run for another term, he's going to be weighing those options. And if he doesn't fix everything, he's screwing himself out of another term anyway, because he's just going to make things that much worse in this nation. Now, some things will probably grind to a halt. I think the immigration rates stop, the sending the military into U.S. cities stops. Some of that stuff will go away pretty quickly when JD Vance takes over.
You know what I find interesting, and I'm looking forward to this, as sick as this sounds. Charlie Kirk dies. Republicans are upset. You're not sad enough. You're cheering for Charlie Kirk dying. They got people trying to dox anybody, any creator talking negatively about Charlie Kirk or talking, joking about it or whatever. If they're upset about the celebrations they're seeing for Charlie Kirk, my God, when Donald Trump dies, it's going to be a nationwide fucking Mardi Gras. They'll be dancing in the streets. People will be cheering. People will be pointing at Republicans. If they're appalled now, just fucking wait. It's going to get crazy.
Oh, I think you're slightly wrong there, Mike. It is not going to be a nationwide Mardi Gras. It is going to be a worldwide Mardi Gras.
Yeah, I'll give
That
you
guy
that.
has
Yeah.
pissed off the entire world. I mean, there is going to be, uh, you know, celebrations going on. Um, I know several people who have said, they're going to party when it happens. Different creators talking about what they're going to do. It's going to become bigger than when Joe Biden won the 2020 election. We kicked him out of office the first time. It and the Republicans are going to lose their minds because they don't understand that it's not his party that we don't like. It's his policies. It's the rhetoric. It is the racism. It's the misogyny. It is all of it that we don't like, and how profanely stupid this guy is. That he has fucked everything so utterly, and they've let him. And we know he's the reason because they don't stand up to him. We know
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk was backing him. And no, I didn't celebrate Charlie Kirk dying. I could care less. As
Right.
another creator said about it, I'm gonna remember Charlie Kirk about the way I remember Rush Limbaugh, and I hardly ever think about Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, it's weird how these people are responding to Charlie Kirk and how hard they're trying to make it the Democrats' fault. Mainly because that's all they've got. They've got no policy. They got to keep the divisiveness between the Republicans and the Democrats. That's one of the problems we had in the 2024 election. That division is what part of what cost Kamala the election. Uh, the questioning within her own party of whether she's the right person or not, or whether they want to vote for a black woman. Republicans are all about division, creating division. Um, Somebody asked Donald Trump, they said, Donnie, I think it was on Fox News, how are you going to unify this country? Donald Trump answered honestly for once, and I believed what he said. He said, I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I don't even care. And it's because he hates the Democrats so badly. And that's typically what a narcissist would say in that circumstances. They're my enemy, so fuck them. There is no unity. And, I get that. But I think the one thing that will unify this country, at least the Democrats, what year were you born?
83.
Okay, you would know nothing about what I'm talking about here, though. There was a time in this country when, for a short period of time, people were unified. And I'm not talking about 9/11, because they did there for a little bit too. But there was a time when everybody loved everybody and they came together, and there was lots of celebrations, ongoing celebrations. And I think when he is gone, we're going to have that same kind of celebration. And ironically, it might unify at least a certain faction of people. And for the older people listening to this podcast, they'll know what I'm talking about. And that is when uh, Team USA hockey team in 1980 beat the Russians and then ultimately won the gold medal. People were freaking the fuck out. It came at a perfect time. We had the hostage crisis and all that stuff. People were down. We beat the Russians and we win the gold medal. Nobody expected it. I mean, I'll tell you how much nobody expected it. I had a few friends that played on that team, one that was a good friend of mine. And when he got added to the Olympic team, his name is Mike Ramsey. He came over to my house, and my brother and I were sitting in the bedroom, and he comes in. He goes, "Dude, I made the Olympic team." I go, "Awesome! Fucking guy from my town, my part of town is going to be in the Olympics." And my brother asked him. He said, "Mike, you think you're going to be able to beat the Russians?" And Mike's answer was, "Oh fuck no, we don't have a prayer." It was such a surprise, and people came together. And I get a sense that when Donald Trump dies, it'll be a similar celebration and might actually unify at least the Democratic side of the country.
Yeah, I think it could. Um, in part, it'll unify us because he's out of the picture. And the other side of it is, as we've talked about, they don't have anybody on the right that can lead the way Donald Trump did. Now, Donald Trump doesn't lead worth a shit, but as we've talked about, he's got a little bit of charisma of some kind that draws these dumb fucks to him.
Yeah,
And JD Vance doesn't have that. I mean, his best bet would be to go campaign in Ashley Furniture. But anyway, um,
yeah,
I'll make the joke TJ would have made. But the whole thing is like they're going to run Don Jr. or Eric. I mean, when Donald Trump finally kicks the bucket and he's finally out of the equation, Republicans are going to be scrambling, and especially if it's something like natural causes, like he just doesn't wake up one day or chokes on a Big Mac, like you always say. Maybe he goes out like Elvis on the toilet, you know, or maybe he has some big episode live on TV and they can't even hide it. The fact that he is gone and there's nothing they can do. The only hope they have of unifying around after he's gone is if something happens to him, like what could have happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, or what happened to Charlie Kirk.
And I will say this, I'll disagree with you on one thing. The likelihood of Donald Trump dying while on the toilet is probably zero because I don't think he uses a toilet. What I would like
Fair,
to, you know,
fair.
you know how when people die and they bleed out, they bleed out and that's how they die. I'd like to see Donald Trump keel over on a stage and instead of bleed out, shit out all over himself, all over the stage, embarrassing as it possibly can be. So his last visual of his legacy is Donald Trump sitting in his own vomit and his own excrement as he expires. That sounds maybe a little psychotic, but when it comes to Donald Trump, I tend to get a little psychotic.
Yeah, I mean, he needs like for them to believe he is actually gone, it would have to be very public. And there's going to be a section of this country that is going to be waiting 3 days to see if he comes back. They're going to be making pilgrimages to his gravesite um, to wait for
Well,
him to, for the ground to open up and for him to come back out. There's going to be, just like Elvis, there's going to be Donald Trump sightings at some backwoods Alabama Walmart. Oh, I saw him at the Walmart in Alabama today. We're going to be hearing about that forever. But because
yeah.
I mean, there were people getting baptized in the name of Donald Trump. That's how far gone some of these supporters of him are. Not all of them. I will say not all of his supporters are that far gone, but there's a section of them that believe he's the second coming or some crazy thing like that.
Well, to add to that, and if people don't think that's true, look at Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk gets shot with a high velocity bullet in the neck. It explodes. He keels over on his back, and blood is spraying all over the place. But there are people out there right now saying, that bullet wouldn't have done that. I think it's all CGI or AI or it was somebody else. Some people think Charlie Kirk's still alive. And I got to tell you, I don't have any inside information, but in that video I saw, motherfucker's dead. There's no question he's dead.
Yeah, I don't think there's no way it's anything like that. Like it wasn't a body double. It wasn't a video. Your buddy Brian Wallenberg said he was there and he saw it happen. If they were doing a body double or something, I'm sure he would have bragged about it in that email. Uh,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it,
Brian
it, it's just
Wallenberg, I got that email and he said, I was 100 feet away from him. And I was going to respond to him, but I don't want to give him what I would have said to him is, well, I wish you were 100 feet closer to that motherfucker. Maybe you could have took you both out because you're both too dumb to fucking be walking the earth.
yeah. I mean, there are people that aren't going to believe he's gone. Same with Donald Trump. When he goes, there's going to be a section of this country that won't believe it. But luckily, that section isn't going to be the majority. They're going to be a very vocal minority for a little bit, and then they're going to shuffle off into obscurity. They're going to get dealt with like the people who say, they still see Elvis out and about and those kind of things, even though I'm not even sure how old Elvis would be. What,
He was born in 35, so he
90
would be
something now?
90 years old. Yeah, 90.
Yeah, 90, something like that. Yeah. But some people you still hear, oh, I saw Elvis, not so many recently, but there are some people who still believe it. And they're going to be treated the same way. They're just going to be, Donald Trump will be gone at some point. We'll be able to move past it. And when that happens, you're going to see the Republican Party scramble to try to salvage their brand going forward. And if by some miracle he makes it to the end of his term, they are going to have to figure out how to move past Donald Trump onto a successor. But that's hard when Donald Trump himself won't let them. He keeps floating the idea of running for a third term. He keeps saying, "Well, I'd like to run. I don't know if I can, but I'd like to run." Oh, what do you think about your vice president? Well, he's not as good as Rubio. We got little Marco doing this and that. And just by calling him little Marco, that diminishes Marco Rubio. He won't let anybody else take the limelight. So they need to hope he doesn't make it to the 2028 general, just so they have a chance at getting the Republican Party to vote for whoever the successor is.
Well, Donald Trump, for him to endorse somebody to run for the presidency, Donald Trump, I heard Donald Trump today, somebody asked about a third term, and Donald Trump honestly said that. He said, well, we've got people working on that. Yeah, I bet you do. Try to get to the midterms and then talk to me about 2028. But let's be honest, and I want to see what you think about this. We talk about MAGA as a cult of personality. There has never been a cult that lost its leader and then successfully, well, I won't say that, uh, but most cults, that personality is the Messiah, is the Lord and Savior to them. And to put somebody else in that spot is pretty difficult to do. Now, I will say there's been one cult that did it successfully. Do you know who that is?
I'm thinking here, but I want to say, was it Joseph Smith and the Mormons?
No, well, I guess you could say that too. That is a fucking cult, regardless of what any Mormon will tell you. Mormonism is a cult. No, I would say Scientology because L. Ron Hubbard was the leader, and then he passed away, and then we got this Miscavige guy and Tom Cruise and shit. They were able to maintain the cult with the leader gone, but in most cases, they're not able to do that. They're a very singular person, and if it's not them, it's hard to find somebody to fill their shoes. And frankly, even if they could get away with replacing Donald Trump, there is nobody out there that can play that role or that would play that role because you'd have to play the fucking fool. You got to make yourself look foolish every time you step up there. And there is nobody, even if they tried it, that could get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump wasn't acting. He is just being himself. Any Republican who would try to emulate Donald Trump would be acting, and they know they can't do that. They can't say the
No,
dumb thing every time they turn around. And the problem is, Donald Trump understands and speaks at a fifth to sixth grade level at best, and
absolutely.
that's what his followers like. Well, he's like one of us, even though he's rich, and you can't do that, and you can't pretend to be that way all the time.
No,
You
definitely
have to
not.
just naturally be that. And most elected Republicans, despite them railing against education, are educated, at least somewhat. There's a lot of lawyers, there's a lot of people with degrees on their side of the aisle. Not all of them. You have your dumb fucks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, but most of them are educated to a degree. It'd be very hard for them to act like Donald Trump. And the other thing is, what a lot of what Donald Trump is doing is not working. So playing the fool only works because Donald Trump has some amount of charisma to captivate that group. You try to just fake it, it's not going to work the same. And you try to do the same dumb shit he's doing. If you don't have that charisma to back it up, they're going to see right through it. They're going to realize that, oh no, this is screwing me over. Your way of telling me it's somebody else isn't working.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We talk about Donald Trump, and as much as he does as much damage as he does, he keeps losing. He keeps losing all the time. Um, and he lost today, the day we're recording this on Monday. President Donald Trump's questionable ouster, this is coming from Raw Story. President Donald Trump's questionable ouster of a Federal Reserve official over allegations of mortgage fraud was dealt a blow Monday when appeals court declined to let him do so. Lisa Cook was fired by Donald Trump from her position because he said there was some mortgage fraud. information came out earlier today that basically said, yeah, she didn't commit fraud. Although there are at least 3 or 4 people on Donald Trump's administration who did the same thing that Donald Trump is claiming she did. Um, the new interest rates are coming out any day now, I think. And the question is, will this woman be sitting in her governor's chair when they take this vote as to what's going to happen? Donald Trump is freaking the fuck out because he lost again. And so he keeps losing. He makes some noise and he gives a perception that he's doing something, but a lot of times it ends up like this: he loses, and then he moves on to some other fucking crazy thing like running tanks into Memphis.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I think we've talked about before, but I'm going to mention if again, or for the first time if I didn't, is that it's interesting that now his new go-to against everybody is we're going to investigate you for mortgage fraud, mortgage fraud.
Yeah,
You know, they're going after this woman for mortgage fraud. I think they went after Adam Schiff. Maybe well, who else was there? Was another Democrat they went after for mortgage fraud or tried to. I think they tried
yeah.
to do the same thing. They tried to bring up allegations. I think it was against Letitia James. But anyway, doesn't matter. The only reason he's even using mortgage fraud is because that's what his convictions are of. That's what he was
Well,
found
exactly. Yeah,
guilty of. So, and to him, that's his greatest shame. So if he can get Democrats convicted of it, he can go, well, see, everybody does it. It's okay. My convictions need to just be expunged and they need to go away because it's not that big a deal. Both sides of the political aisle do it. This was all political.
yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. I was gonna what was I gonna bring up? Fuck, I forgot. Um, but I'm old, and you would expect that. Um, we're hearing a lot about Kash Patel with the FBI. Sounds like he's taken a lot of heat, not only from the Democrats, but from the Republicans. Not unlike his daddy, Donnie Trump. Every time he tries to do something, he fucks up. Every time he opens his mouth, he says something he shouldn't. We're hearing now that Kash Patel may be on the way out by way of the Republicans. Um, will they really do something like that? Because if you do something like that, that's just going to make Donald Trump and the Republicans look bad. But at the same time, Kash Patel is just a fucking embarrassment.
I would be more inclined to think what they'll do if they get to the point when they're like, okay, he's got to go, is they'll get the right person in Donald Trump's ear saying, hey, this guy's making you look like a fool. He's making you look like a loser. You need to look like a winner, and you need to get rid of this guy because he's doing nothing but sabotaging you. And you know, they'll they'll get Donald Trump to do it, I think, because they don't want to take the heat. They don't want to piss off Donald Trump because, like I said earlier, they're still thinking Donald Trump can save them in the midterms. So they get Donald Trump to do this and, convince him that that's the way to go because Donald Trump is easily manipulated. You pat him on the back, tell him he looks like a genius, he's the smartest man in the room. And if you go the South Park route, we talked about that, I think, the last time I was on the podcast, where they had everybody showing up, giving him gifts, going, and you don't have a small penis. You do that? He'll give you whatever he wants. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not hard. But Donald Trump, I think he will be the guy to get rid of Kash Patel. Ultimately, I mean, he fires everybody that works for him at some point or another. They all end up getting thrown under the bus. He went through like what 3 or 4 attorneys general under his first term. He had Jeff Sessions. Then they had somebody else. Then they ultimately landed on Bill Barr.
Yeah.
And then I think Bill Barr left too, right before the end, and they had somebody else yet.
Yeah. And they had a number of secretaries of defense too. They had 4 or 5 of those fuckers as well. So, but do you think maybe? I mean, we had this situation with Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino kicked back, and they didn't like that, but they didn't feel good about firing him. So they got him I don't know, a fucking co-captain or a teacher's aide or something, somebody to stand with Dan. They hired a co-chief of staff or whatever the fuck his job is. Do you think they might, in order to avoid firing Cash Patel and looking stupid, add somebody as a co-captain there? It's a stupid idea, but this is Donald Trump.
Either that, or what they'll do is they will offer Cash Patel a different position, not actually fire him, but hey, we're going to make, we need somebody to go be an ambassador over here, or I think Donald Trump still has some secretary positions that aren't filled. Why don't we bring you into the cabinet as a secretary of this or an undersecretary of that or whatever? Um, and then that way it looks like they're giving him a better position and that he's taken the job willingly. Oh, suddenly FBI director spots that open, it's vacant because Cash Patel took a different position. Now Donald Trump can fill it without actually having to fire him. I could see him doing that.
Yeah. How much danger do you think we're in when when we look at what happened to Charlie Kirk? A lot of people think this is a bad omen. We've talked about it before. When things get really bad, as Will would say, people come out with the pitchforks and the torches. Now, this kid that did this shooting isn't part of everyday America. He's some weird underground alt right fucking thing that we can talk about a little bit. I don't know a lot about it, but from what I've heard, it's fucking weird. Um, but do you think this spurs other violence, just something like this? I mean, it certainly angered the Republicans against the Democrats, unnecessarily so. And of course, they came out and they said, "Oh, you did it this time. This is civil war. You better not fuck with us. We're coming for you." Do you think this kind of thing sparks other assassinations or assassination attempts and maybe other kinds of violence?
That's hard to say. It could, but I don't think it's going to be any kind of violence from right to left. I think it's going to be much like this, right on right.
Yeah.
Um, because from what I understand, and I don't know a lot about the group that uh, this guy, the alleged shooter, is supposed to be part of, but apparently they're farther right than Charlie Kirk, and uh, that they basically were taking out Charlie Kirk because he wasn't far enough right.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
might be part of the problem. I did see some a creator point this out, and I thought this was kind of interesting. Uh, that well, clearly he must be on the left because he had anti-fascist messaging on the bullet casings because supposedly there was some stuff engraved in the bullet, but how you do that on that size of round is, you know, seems unlikely to me. But anyway, he's like there was anti-fascist messaging on the bullet, so that clearly must make him on the left. And when you stop and think about it, what this person that was pointing out was when the right is saying something like that, they're admitting people like Charlie Kirk and the right are fascists, and
Yeah.
they don't even realize it.
Well, yeah. It's funny. Exactly what you said. Charlie Kirk was MAGA, the radical right, the crazy right, the misogynist, the racist, and all that shit. The group this kid came from is something called the Groypers. Now, that's not some deep meaning thing. Let me just read what Wikipedia says of what the Groypers are. The Groypers, sometimes called the Groyper Army, are a group of alt right white nationalists and Christian nationalist activists led by Nick Fuentes. Groypers are loosely defined group of Fuentes' followers, and after him, there is no clear second in the Groyper hierarchy. Groypers are named after the cartoon amphibian named Groyper, a variant of the internet meme Peppy the Frog. See, that's what's weird about this. These are young men. Some people call them incels, and 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 they're on Reddit and they're gamers and they're a meme group, and everything's a fucking game to them. This is a very weird group. And then of course we found out that what they're trying to tag onto the liberals is that it turns out this guy that did shooting has a roommate who he has apparently a relationship with, who is what they call a femboy, basically a transgender person or somebody in transition. And they're going, see, he was radicalized by the left because the transgender person is there. What they don't understand about this group is so far right. They say they're almost infringing on the far left. And the whole transgender thing is well accepted in this group because Nick Fuentes had some relationship or something and accepts the femboys. But it's basically a shot against women because they're incels and they're mad because they can't get the attention of women. So in this little group, they create this faction of people, these femboys, who may be transgender and may not. It's just too fucking weird for me. I mean, we've seen some weird shit, but this is strange. And I'm not saying it's weird because somebody might be transgender. It just doesn't make sense to me that these people are so far right and they clearly dislike LGBTQ folks, yet they're open to this. I don't fucking get it.
I don't either. It sounds crazy to me. Now, I've been hearing that about this roommate. Um, but then I also thought I heard one of the earlier reports said that that part wasn't true, that he actually lived with his parents. So I don't even know if it's legit. I think they're still grasping for straws, trying to find a way to make it about the left because they can't accept the fact that it was one of their own taking out one of their own.
But doesn't it suggest to you that with Donald Trump particularly, still pushing the left did it, the left did it? That seems to me to be desperation because it's clearly not the left. It may not be their faction of the right, but it is more right than it is left. There was no Democrat, no libtard that did this. It's somebody on this alt right faction that did this. Yet Donald Trump keeps saying it's the left. We're going to investigate all the left organizations. We're going to do all this. Basically, that tells me that they have little else to argue with Democrats about. So they have to try to sell this flat out lie, in order to keep up the division and keep up the the MAGA fucks to keep them angry. Because I see MAGA people on TikTok and other things saying, "What are you talking about? It's the left." When Brian Wallenberg basically sent me his email, he told me he's not a Republican. He was radicalized by the left. Well, there's no indication of that at all. No ties to the left. It's all part of this weird cultish alt right thing. But they keep pushing the narrative. And that tells me that's all they got. And that's pretty fucking weak.
Yeah, it is. They desperately wanted it to be us on the left because they have been itching and angry for a civil war. They've
Yeah.
been spoiling for a fight going back, 10 years, 20 years, maybe longer. I think part of it has its roots after the Civil War. I mean, how long have we heard the South's going to rise again
Yeah.
after, the Civil War? And then you get into closer to modern times. We had the audacity to elect Barack Obama. Oh, you better be careful. We're coming. You're not going to take our guns. We'll fight you. We'll fight you. All that kind of stuff. Then it doesn't happen. And then Donald Trump loses and loses by a huge margin in the popular vote. Not so much in the electoral college, but by the popular vote
Yeah.
in 2020. And I think they were seeing the writing on the wall, that they were scared that their time of being relevant was over. So they've been lashing out ever since about it's going to be civil war, and you get Donald Trump saying things like fight like hell, and you got to protect your democracy, and you got to fight for it, and all this stuff. They were spoiling for a fight. He had them geared for a fight, and I think they expected to lose in 2020 or 2024. I think they expected to not win the presidency. Kamala Harris, by all apparent measures, you and I talked about it. She was popular. Joe Biden's uh, policies were working. The economy was doing good. You had Donald Trump talk about doing all this stupid shit that was going to fuck the economy over, which it has. All that stuff. Everything said Kamala Harris should win. Democrats should pick up seats in the House, keep the Senate.
Yeah.
And they were prepared for a fight after they lost again, and then they won, and they don't know how to escalate back down. They're still looking for that fight.
The thing about it is how do you take them seriously, though? Now, granted, after the 2020 election, we had the insurrection at the Capitol, and they tried to fight there. They had everything going for them, and they still lost. So they're not very bright, not very tough. But from that point on, they said, well, if you indict Donald Trump, there's going to be hell to pay. There's going to be a civil war. Then he gets indicted. Nothing happens. Yeah, but if you convict him, you motherfuckers, we're coming after you. He gets convicted. Nothing happens. They do this over and over again. They make these threats like a bully would, hoping that we'll cave, and we don't. And they're like the boy who cried wolf. They never back up anything they say, which is very stereotypical of a fucking bully. Make a lot of threats, have no balls, no substance, and don't do anything about it. So I think, them talking about the Democrats, even though the Democrats had nothing to do with this, they're looking for a fight, but they're looking more to intimidate than actually engage. I just don't see them
Yeah.
having the courage to engage. I got to be honest, if you're on the Democratic side and you piss them off, you may be getting much more than you'd hope for. Somebody was going to say, what if we find out a Democratic radical libtard shot Charlie Kirk? What would happen then? They'd be really mad. And my thought is they'd be really scared because they don't think the Democrats will do anything like that. And the moment one of their own got shot by a Democrat, they're going, oh, fuck, they're coming for us. I really believe that that's how they felt. And in fact, right now, you're seeing people in Congress and people all over the media. They're worried about this. This opened the door for other people to try this.
Yeah, I one of the things I was reading right before we got on this podcast was that one of the things that might hold up the budget bill, they're talking about having to kick the funding for the government down the road into November. Don't even know if they have the votes to do that. Donald Trump
Right.
says, you can do it without the Democrats, but they need the Democrats because they can't get past the filibuster. But anyway, um, but Mike Johnson says one of the things that's holding up progress on it is they need to pass additional security money for members of Congress and Secret Service for the president and vice president and all of this. That they need to, after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, that they need to up security protection details around, and obviously they need to agree to money. Now I think that's going to happen with bipartisan support, but still, that's not the point. Like, they have to do it, and that's holding things up. They're scared that this was just the first volley of problems.
I want you to clarify something for me if you can. You said this continuing resolution or this budget thing wouldn't get through the filibuster. And theoretically, that's true. But we know that when it has to do with budgets, like with the big, beautiful bill, they got around it because it was budgetary and they could do something other to go around the filibuster. Does that apply with this, whatever they're going to do next with a continuing resolution or whatever the fuck?
From what I understand, continuing resolutions like that, especially if they have any, because they were talking about it being a continuing resolution, but if there's any new spending, they have, like, that's one of the things where uh, the reconciliation process can be used is if there's no new spending. If
Right.
there's cuts, which is what the one big beautiful bill mostly was cuts in spending or move or shuffling of money from one department to another. That's different, and they can use reconciliation. They can bypass the filibuster. But this continuing resolution, if they put any writers on it at all, like I said, Mike Johnson wants to put extra money in for security for members of Congress, etc. That's new spending. That has to go past the filibuster because then it doesn't qualify for reconciliation. Just like how they didn't get their way with the wanting to limit federal injunctions by judges in the one big beautiful bill. They said it wasn't related to the budget enough that it qualified for reconciliation. This was kind of the same. If there's new spending, anything new doesn't qualify. Um, so they need Democrats to get past the filibuster.
So if they go and try to get a continuing resolution, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, if they get the continuing resolution, because that's all that the Republicans have been able to do for some time, they can't change anything, right? It's got to stay the same. And if that's the case, aren't we still dealing with numbers that were set out during the Biden administration?
The way from the articles I've read, they usually a continuing resolution is just we are going to fund the government under these levels. Usually it's at current levels. They can change them if they want. They don't have to be at existing levels, but most of the time it is. And yes, it would be under mostly under Biden numbers. However, the one big beautiful bill cut a bunch of funding for a bunch of things, and those cuts would also apply the way I understand it. That's why Democrats are pushing for concessions because, like, there's healthcare subsidies for the Affordable Care Act that are going to run out that they want put into this continuing resolution to guarantee that those will be available and won't jack up the price of healthcare.
Right. So what do you think? I mean, in recent times, the likes of Schumer um, and Hakeem Jeffries, they've always kind of bent to the Republicans. We don't want a shutdown. You know, it's funny. Schumer said, "Well, we don't know what's going to happen with a shutdown." Turns out, what's happened already without having the shutdown is far worse than what the shutdown would have done. Do people like Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries stick with that strategy and then basically sell out the Democrats, or are there enough people pushing back that they will put some pressure on the Republicans? I know everybody's worried about who's going to be at fault for the shutdown, but you really got to do something here, unlike you did last time, and stop these fuckers. Put some kind of hurdle in their way. Push back. That's the only way we can deal with these bullies, as it were. Do you think the Republicans, Democrats have the balls to actually pull that off, or are we just going to see more of the same?
Well, they were talking about letting it get shut down. And I think inadvertently, I did a TikTok on this. Donald Trump gave them the cover to let it get shut down. When he came out and said, Republicans in Congress, just get it done. You don't need Democrats to do it. Just get it passed and do it. And, keep the government open. Don't let them shut, don't worry about it. We can keep the government open. We can keep everything funded without any Democrats, not worrying about the filibuster at all. When he said that, he has given or Democrats the cover they need to back off to say, okay, it's all on you guys. Make it happen.
Yeah.
And if the government shuts down, well, Donald Trump said they can do it without us. So why haven't they done it? They have cover here. And Donald Trump is too stupid to realize he gave him that out there.
Yeah. When do you think the threats start? I mean, we know Mondami is running for mayor in New York. None of the Republicans endorsed him, whether it be for APAC or whatever the fuck it is. But Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, came out and supported Mondami. Now Donald Trump comes out and is talking about taking away money from New York. I don't think New York is a taker state, so I don't know that he can do much. But
They're
this
not.
is what he does, and this is how he gets the votes in Congress. He calls them up, he makes some kind of threat. is there any kind of threat he can pull off to get this passed? He's going to have to threaten Democrats, and they're going to say, fuck yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any sort of a threat that he can make at this point. Now, maybe there is something, but Democrats have leverage. Donald Trump is spinning in about 12 different directions.
Yeah,
His health isn't great. You got the Epstein files going over him. He's crashing the economy. He himself has said they don't need Democrats. So if he calls them up and tries to threaten them, they're going to say, with what? You said you didn't need us. Your words. Make it happen. And when he calls Republicans and they can't seem to get the job done, it's not going to, I don't think it'll work. I don't think he's got enough leverage over the Republicans. And Mike Johnson's margin is so small in the House now after the Virginia special election where that Democrat won, he can lose 2 votes
right.
in the House. 2. So he's got to have everybody on board to pass anything. I don't know how they get this done without Democratic support, and Democrats are holding all the cards. The problem's going to be they need to get enough Republicans on board with whatever they agree to that they can override Donald Trump should he try to veto whatever they agree to.
But they have problems with divisiveness within their own party, much like the Democrats do. You talked about the legislature and the new people with the special elections. And the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing needs 218 votes to bypass Mike Johnson and get the bill on the floor to release the Epstein files. They've got, what do they got now? 217 on that list.
217.
They, we had the new guy win the special election. He said he would sign on. Now there's another special election on the 23rd. The Democrats expected to win another special election, and they've said that they would sign on. So that would give them the 218 toward the end of this month. The question is, even if they get it past Mike Johnson in the House, they get it passed and get a full vote on it and say it passes, people are still questioning whether it would get through the Senate, which is necessary in order to get this stuff all released.
Well, beyond getting it through the Senate, it would have to get to Donald Trump. He'd have to uh, sign it to get it
Right,
into law, or it would
right.
go back to Congress and they would have to pass it around his veto. Now, I guarantee you, if it gets through the Senate, he's going to veto it.
Yeah,
No doubt in my mind that he vetoes this. There's no way he can, unless he has some stroke of brilliance in his mind that he thinks, well, that they've done enough to hide me and shield me that if I sign this, that I'll look like the hero and it'll make me popular, but they've covered me or whatever. I don't think there's any way he signs it. But
no, I
I
don't
think
either.
what once it passes the House, the pressure is going to be on the Senate. I don't, I would, I don't know which way the Senate's going to go, but they're going to have a lot more pressure. And then once it passes the Senate, if Donald Trump vetoes it, this is going to become very high profile, and Republicans are going to have to make a choice. Do they try to continue to protect Donald Trump? Or when the calls are coming from within their own party to release the Epstein files, do they have to, because they're worried about reelection? I talk about it all the time that is one of the politicians' greatest driving points is maintaining their own power. Are they going to make the choice to, you know, go against Donald Trump and try to override his veto?
Right, right. Well, if they know, what I suspect they'll do is they'll try to save as many people from the Senate and have them vote to release it, knowing that it wouldn't be enough to overturn the veto and knowing that Donald Trump will veto it. Now, whether Donald Trump will get mad at those people for voting for it is one thing. The nice thing about this is if the Senate votes to hold it back and Donald Trump vetoes anything that should pass, they're basically slapping a frame on their face and saying, we protect pedophiles. And that's going
Mm-hmm.
to show up in the elections.
they are in a no-win situation here, no matter which way they go with this. And it's getting to the point where Donald Trump can't get away from it. Now, he's got this big UK trip. Did you hear about this? They have
I
a
kind of did, but
huge,
tell me.
there's a huge poster that apparently is going to be out at the airfield where I think it's the airfield anyway, or a field where he's going to see it from where he lands in the UK, of a picture of him standing buddy buddy with Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow. He's going to love that. And didn't recently a British ambassador to the United States get fired because of his bromance with Jeffrey Epstein? Didn't that just happen?
That happened within the last week or so. He came out when, like, a lot came out about this guy and what he has said about Epstein, multiple emails to Epstein about, oh, we know you didn't do it. Keep up the good fight. You're going to clear your name. Um, Talking about actually having gone to Epstein Island, uh, just a bunch of stuff. And when it was made public, it didn't take long. He lost his job, which is what should happen.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and one of the other things we found out here, even Fox is saying that yes, it's Donald Trump's signature on that birthday card.
Right.
One of their hosts said it was Donald Trump's signature, that the card is legit. But how they're trying to spin it now is, well, somebody handed it to him back in the day and he just scribbled a signature on it. He didn't actually read it. He didn't know what he was signing. He
Yeah,
signs a lot of
bullshit.
things and he doesn't know what he was signing. And if Donald Trump was actually paying attention to that, I'm surprised he hasn't come out and tried to clarify. Well, if it's really got my legitimate signature on it, of course I knew what I was signing. But I know, because that's how he is, right? They back him
Yeah,
into
he'll
a
fuck it
corner and
up.
he doesn't even realize it.
No, no, he'll give the wrong answer every time and implicate himself in virtually anything. What do you think happens with the Epstein thing? We're seeing things trickle out here and there. We're seeing the victims or the survivors speaking out. This isn't going away, and I don't know if the evidence will be released anytime Donald Trump is still president. But we're going to get bits and pieces of things. We know his administration, especially with the DOJ, has a fair amount of leakers because people are horrified by this whole thing and they want to try to save themselves. How do you think this all plays out in, say, the next 6 months?
I think we keep getting more and more information, and it wouldn't surprise me if somebody besides Ghislaine Maxwell gets charged with something at least, whether it's state level charges or something connected to it. Um, but I think ultimately Donald Trump and a bunch of people, their names are going to come out. They're going to be embarrassed. You're probably going to see a few more people like this ambassador from the UK lose their jobs. And even if they don't face criminal charges, they're going to be made irrelevant if they were any sort of notable person because of their connection. I think it's just going to be slow. It's going to be bits and pieces here and there. Um, but I think both sides, Republican and Democrat, are going to be sending stuff out to the press to verify that this is what we found so far. We've got this, we've got that. And as things come out, like I said, certain people are going to be uh, run through the ringer in the court of public opinion.
Well, there's the other thing that happened yesterday. Maureen Comey, who was the lead prosecutor in the SDNY, all right? She was the lead prosecutor in the P. Diddy case, the Jeffrey Epstein case, and the Ghislaine Maxwell case. And she was fired by Donald Trump. She is now suing the DOJ for not giving her notice of it, for not having cause to fire her and not tell her what that cause is, and not allow her to defend herself in this situation. If she's given a decent court, she's going to win that fucking court case. And she wants her job back, which I don't know why she'd want that. But is that court case going to potentially bring out information that maybe Donnie doesn't want?
Depending on what she thinks and why she thinks it was that she got let go. if she thinks they're trying to protect Ghislaine Maxwell or somebody connected because of things that were brought up in her court case, yes, I think it could because she has subpoena power, and all she has to prove is that it's probable that there's information that could help her case in whatever record she's seeking. You get that before the right judge, and she could have access to a bunch of documents that we haven't seen yet, that the DOJ has been slow to release to Congress, and they may have to release them to this judge.
So once again, Donald Trump tries to be the tough guy, yet he fucks up because he
Yeah,
puts himself in a bad situation. We shouldn't be
yeah.
surprised by that.
No, he screws up every chance he gets. He doesn't know what's going on half the time. He makes a rash decision because he thinks it's going to work out in his favor. Well, if I just fire her, she can't say anything bad about me. What she knows won't come back to bite me, not thinking that she could sue. Because obviously he thinks he's the tough guy well, see, I just fired you. It's not how that works, but that's how his mind works. And he's so far mentally gone that he doesn't even realize half the time what the side effects of what he's doing could be.
Well, exactly. That I mean, that's what I've said about him before. It's all emotion. It's all reactionary. He doesn't think about the future or the potential ramifications. So he just says, "I'm going to be the tough guy and fire Maureen Comey," and then realizes after the fact, "Oh fuck, she can make my life miserable." And then he finally grasps it. And then he tries to talk his way out of it some way there. Maureen Comey, uh, he doesn't like her partially because she's James Comey's daughter, but she's also an extremely talented lawyer. And for her to bring on some other lawyers and sue Donald Trump, this could get messy very quickly because Donald Trump, I don't know if you've noticed, doesn't have the best fucking lawyers, believe it or not.
Well, gee, that's what happens when you don't pay your attorneys. I
Yeah.
mean, and then you force them to go out, and not only are you not paying them or paying them very little, you force them to do these dumb things that could potentially get them disbarred. They have to take these ridiculous positions in court, and a lot of reasonable, good attorneys are going to say, "Fuck no, I don't want to have any part of that."
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is going to be an interesting week. I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. We're about at that point. Eric, thank you for coming on. I know your schedule's a little varied, so it's nice to know that we can get you on at certain times because people enjoy hearing from you. So thank you for coming on the program.
Well, like I said, thanks for having me. I'm glad people enjoy it when I'm on. For those looking for me, I am Analytical Iowan over on TikTok and YouTube. Should TikTok end up getting banned because we're up against it, even though he says there's a deal, I'm still going to be over on YouTube. If I get hit with a ban because of the new community guidelines, which I haven't seen many issues with so far, again, still be over there on YouTube. So those are the two places you can find me right now. Still working on trying to make it work where I'm more consistent on getting content up on other places.
Yeah, absolutely. The same goes for me. If I get banned, which according to the rules, I should be getting banned, but I haven't noticed any problems as yet. My home base is YouTube, but I'm also on Substack and I'm also on Spotify. You can get all the TikToks or the short videos and the podcast. And Eric was telling me something. He's at over 500 followers on YouTube. You folks out there in the audience, I would suggest you go follow Eric to keep him going. We need the information he provides. And if you follow him, you won't regret it. So check out Analytical Iowan and follow him on YouTube.
Yep. And I've said it before, if you guys have questions, go ahead, shoot me an email, Analytical Iowan over on Gmail. I might not respond as quickly as some people, again, having to work while doing all of this. Some days is easier than others. But I will try to get back to you. And if I think it's a good enough question that a lot of people would benefit from the answer to, I may make it into one of my longer videos that I also have right now exclusively on YouTube, my government answers playlist, where I try to take a 10, 15-minute deeper dive into a particular topic just to make sure I can cover it in depth enough that I can't really get to on TikTok.
And I'll just say this to Brian Wallenberg, closed circuit to him if he's listening. Don't bother emailing me because I will not answer because I wouldn't waste my time talking to somebody as dumb as you are. Now, Eric's a nicer guy. So, Brian, feel free to send him an email. He'll get about 9 different TikToks out of that dumb shit. So, check out Eric when it comes to the email, Brian, because I don't give a fuck what you have to say. You're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. All right. I want to thank those listening for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.